October 12, 1944. The briefing room at RAF Leiston, England. The air is thick with the ghosts of 1,000 cigarettes and the damp chill of a Suffolk autumn. It clings to the wool of the flight jackets, a permanent resident in the Neeson hut where the pilots of the 357th Fighter Group gather before dancing with death. Outside, the rain has stopped, but a low, grey ceiling presses down on the airfield, promising a miserable day for flying. Inside, the mood is no better. All eyes are on one man, First Lieutenant Jack Racer Riley. He stands before a large map of northern France, a piece of chalk in his hand, his youthful face set with a conviction that borders on arrogance. At 22, he possesses the unshakable certainty of a man who has never seriously considered his own mortality. The room is a murmur of private jokes and stifled coughs. These men, the famed Yoxford boys, are veterans. They have seen friends burn in the skies over Germany, seen Mustangs peel away trailing black smoke, never to return. They have earned their caution. And what Riley is proposing sounds like madness. He taps the map, indicating a road snaking through a heavily wooded area southwest of Aachen. They're moving supplies at night and hunkering down during the day, he says, his voice cutting through the low hum. Standard strafing runs are too predictable. The flak batteries are dug in, camouflaged. They know our angle of approach. We come in low and shallow, they chew us to pieces before we're even in range. A few heads nod in grim agreement. They had lost Lieutenant Peterson to exactly that scenario just last week. So, Riley continues, turning to face the room, we change the angle. He makes a sweeping, vertical gesture with the chalk. We come down from 10,000 feet. Almost straight down. Full throttle. The dive builds up so much speed, we're a harder target to track. By the time their gunners realize what's happening, we're on top of them. We make one pass, one single, devastating pass, and we're gone. Pull up over the trees and climb out before they can even recalibrate. The room falls silent. Not a silence of respect, but of disbelief. You can hear a metal lighter click open, then the scrape and hiss as a cigarette is lit. Captain Frank Steady Evans, a flight leader with weary eyes and a perpetually cautious frown, breaks the quiet. Straight down, Jack. From 10,000 feet? You call that a tactic? I call that a lawn dart impersonation. A wave of nervous laughter ripples through the room. Riley's jaw tightens. It's about compression of time, Frank. We minimize our exposure. A shallow run gives every 20mm cannon in the valley a 5-6 second window to stitch you up. My way, they get 1 second. Maybe 2. They won't be able to lead us. Evans shakes his head, taking a long drag from his cigarette. And what about the pull-out? At that speed, you'll need a mile of clear air to level off. You misjudge it by a fraction of a second, you smear yourself and a brand new P-51 across a French forest. There's no margin for error. None. He looks around the room, his gaze a silent appeal to reason. He's talking about a terminal velocity dive at treetop level. It's not a calculated risk. It's suicide. The nickname, born in that moment of derision, sticks instantly. The suicide dive. The men around the room repeat it in low tones, a mix of mockery and morbid curiosity. They see a kid, drunk on his own skill, confusing luck with talent. They see a headline for his hometown newspaper and another empty bunk in the barracks. The squadron's commanding officer, Major Croft, who had been observing from the back, finally steps forward. The laughter dies. His face is unreadable, a mask carved by responsibility. He looks at the map, then at Riley. He understands the brutal logic of war, the constant need for an edge. But he also understands the fragility of the young men under his command. He sees the fine line between innovation and recklessness, and he fears Riley is about to leap across it with both feet. The tension in the room is a physical thing, a pressure building against the thin metal walls of the hut. Major Croft's voice is quiet, but it carries the weight of command. Your theory is noted, Lieutenant. For today's mission, however, you will fly Captain Evans's wing. You will stick to standard doctrine. Is that understood? The dismissal is clear. Riley's face flushes, a mix of anger and humiliation. Yes, sir, he clips out, the words tasting like ash. He retreats from the front of the room, the smirks of his fellow pilots following him like shadows. He's the squadron eccentric, the brilliant but dangerously unorthodox kid who needs a steady hand to keep him from killing himself. He finds his seat, slumping into it as the rest of the briefing drones on about weather, rally points, and radio frequencies. He barely hears it. The laughter echoes in his mind, louder than the major's voice. Lawn dart. Suicide dive. They don't see the physics of it, the cold, hard geometry of speed and angles. They only see the risk. 2 hours later, he's strapping into the cockpit of his P-51 Mustang, Carolina Comet. The ground crew chief, a grizzled sergeant named Mac, gives him a knowing look as he helps with the harnesses. Take it easy up there, Lieutenant. Captain Evans ain't the type for improvising. Riley just nods, his mind elsewhere. The roar of the Packard Merlin V12 engine coming to life is a familiar comfort, a 1,600 horsepower growl that vibrates through his bones. He taxis onto the runway with the rest of Blue Flight, the canopy sealed, the world outside reduced to a framed picture of gray English skies. He is part of the machine now, an extension of its aluminum skin and raw power. The mission is a straightforward fighter sweep over the German border, a rhubarb operation to harass enemy targets of opportunity. For the first hour, it is mind-numbingly routine. They cross the channel, the white cliffs of Dover shrinking behind them, replaced by the patchwork green and brown of occupied France. The boredom is a kind of poison, dulling the senses. They patrol their designated sector, seeing nothing but empty roads and quiet farmhouses. The radio is filled with the calm, procedural chatter of men at work. Then, a call from Red Flight, miles to their east. Tally-ho! Multiple bogies, looks like 109s, low altitude. The radio crackles to life with a new energy. But Blue Flight's orders are clear: maintain patrol, do not engage. They are the reserve, the stoppers in case any German fighters break through. Riley's hands tighten on the stick. A dogfight is brewing just over the horizon, and he is stuck flying lazy circles in the sky. It is then that Captain Evans spots it. A break in the trees below. A dirt road that isn't on their maps. And something moving. Blue leader to Blue Flight. I've got movement. Looks like a supply convoy, heading east. Let's go down and say hello. Standard echelon, attack from the west. This is it. Not the perfect scenario Riley had imagined, but an opportunity. They peel off, descending from 8,000 feet in a gentle, controlled dive. Riley, on Evans's wing, feels a surge of adrenaline. As they drop below the cloud cover, the convoy comes into sharp focus. Not just a few trucks. It's a long one. At least a dozen, maybe more, Opel Blitz trucks packed with supplies, kicking up a trail of dust. It's a key artery, pumping lifeblood to the front. But as they line up for the attack, the forest erupts. Puffs of black smoke blossom around them. Flak. Not just rifles, but heavy machine guns and 20mm cannons, cleverly hidden in the tree line. Tracers, like angry red hornets, zip past Riley's canopy. Evans's voice comes over the radio, strained. Breaking off. I'm hit. Engines running rough. His Mustang lurches, trailing a thin line of white smoke as he pulls up sharply, fighting for altitude. The rest of Blue Flight follows their leader, their attack aborted before they'd even fired a shot. The convoy below, momentarily panicked, begins to scatter, the trucks pulling off the road, seeking the safety of the trees. The opportunity is vanishing. In seconds, it will be gone forever. Riley watches them go, his orders clear, follow his flight leader. But the laughter from the briefing room is ringing in his ears. He looks at the scattering trucks, then up at his retreating squadron. And he makes a choice. With a flick of the wrist, he breaks formation, rolling his Mustang onto its side, ignoring the frantic calls from Evans. He is alone, pointing the nose of the Carolina Comet straight down. The world turns sideways, then upside down. The gray sky is replaced by the green earth. For a moment, hanging there by his seat straps, Jack Riley feels a sense of profound clarity. This is where he belongs. Not in formation, not following cautious orders, but here, on the edge, pushing the machine and himself to their absolute limits. He ignores Captain Evans's voice, now frantic and distorted in his headset. "Riley, what in God's name are you doing? Form up." "That's an order, Lieutenant." The words are just noise, static against the rising symphony of his Merlin engine. He pushes the stick forward, and the P-51 responds instantly, its nose dropping toward the ground like a hawk stooping on its prey. The altimeter begins to unwind at a terrifying rate. 10,000 feet. 9,000. 8. The suicide dive is no longer a theory chalked on a blackboard. It is a violent, physical reality. The scream of the engine changes pitch, rising from a roar to a high-pitched shriek as the propeller tips flirt with the speed of sound. The airframe begins to vibrate, a deep, resonant shudder that travels up the control column and into Riley's hands. This is what the engineers feared: compressibility. The air, moving too fast over the wings, begins to act like a solid, threatening to lock his controls. He has to fight the stick just to keep the plane pointed where he wants it. 7,000 feet. The landscape below is no longer a map, it's a rushing, three-dimensional wall. The convoy, which had seemed like a line of toys, now resolves into individual trucks. He can see the canvas tops, the desperate figures of German soldiers scrambling for cover, their faces turned upward in a mixture of defiance and terror. You are inside the cockpit with him now. The G-forces are light, pushing you up against your harness as the dive steepens. The noise is all-encompassing, a physical pressure on your eardrums. Outside the canopy, the world is a blur of motion. The flak begins to open up again, but this time it's different. The gunners on the ground are confused. They are trained for shallow, predictable attack runs. They are not prepared for a silver sliver of death dropping out of the sky at over 450 miles per hour. Their calculations are useless. The black puffs of smoke from their 20mm shells explode harmlessly behind him, chasing his shadow. Red tracers streak past, but they seem slow, almost lazy, as he plummets through their trajectory before they can adjust. 6,000 feet. 5. The physical strain is immense. His focus narrows to a single point. The gun sight. Through the glowing reticle, he sees the lead truck, a fuel tanker. That's his anchor. Everything else fades away. The fear, the doubt, the memory of the laughter in the briefing room, it all burns away in the pure, cold fire of concentration. 4,000 feet. The details on the ground are terrifyingly clear. He can see the tread on the tires of the trucks, the frantic movements of a gun crew swinging their weapon around, a futile gesture against the screaming apparition above them. He knows the danger of target fixation, the hypnotic pull of the ground that has claimed so many pilots. He forces himself to breathe in and out. A calm, steady rhythm against the chaos. 3,000 feet. He can feel the air thickening, the controls growing heavy and sluggish. The moment is coming. He has to time this perfectly. Too early, and his bullets will scatter, the attack wasted. Too late, and the Carolina Comet becomes his coffin. 2,000 feet. The trees at the edge of the road are no longer abstract shapes, they are individual, menacing spikes. He feels the immense power of the Mustang straining at the leash, a thoroughbred begging to be unleashed. The faces of the German soldiers are now distinct, their expressions of shock etched in his memory. This is the moment of truth. He thumbs the red button on the control stick. His entire body is tense, a coiled spring of anticipation. 1,000 feet. The ground rushes up to swallow him whole. At 900 feet, traveling at nearly 500 miles per hour, Jack Riley fires. The effect is instantaneous and cataclysmic. The P-51 Mustang shudders violently as 8 Browning M2.50 caliber machine guns, 4 in each wing, unleash a storm of armor-piercing incendiary rounds. The sound is not a rattle, but a deafening, visceral roar, like canvas being torn on an industrial scale. For the German soldiers on the ground, it is the sound of Armageddon. From their perspective, the silver fighter has materialized from the heavens, growing from a speck to a monster in seconds, and now it is breathing fire. The stream of tracers is so dense it looks like a solid laser beam connecting the Mustang to the earth. Riley's first burst shreds the lead truck, the fuel tanker. The rounds perforate the thin steel skin as if it were paper. There is a flash, a bloom of orange and white, and the truck vaporizes in a blossoming fireball that engulfs the road. The concussion wave from the explosion buffets his aircraft, a violent slap from below. He keeps his finger on the trigger, the gun sight steady. He is not just aiming, he is painting a line of destruction down the entire length of the convoy. His rudder pedals are alive, dancing under his boots as he makes minute corrections, walking the stream of .50 caliber death from one target to the next. The second truck, carrying ammunition, erupts in a sympathetic detonation, a massive secondary explosion that sends shrapnel and debris cartwheeling into the air. The third and fourth trucks, loaded with soldiers, are torn apart, their canvas covers shredded, their occupants thrown from the vehicles. The entire pass, from the moment he opens fire to the moment he ceases, lasts less than 6 seconds. In that sliver of time, he has expended hundreds of rounds and created a vision of hell on the forest road. But the most dangerous part is yet to come. The pull-out. The ground is no longer a target, it is an imminent, unyielding threat. With the smell of cordite filling his cockpit, Riley hauls back on the stick with all his strength. The Mustang, groaning in protest, responds. The G-forces are crushing. A gray veil descends over his vision as the blood is forced from his head. He is pinned deep into his seat, his body weighing 5 or 6 times its normal weight. The horizon, once a vertical line in his canopy, slams down into its proper place. He feels the leaves of the tallest oak trees brush against the belly of his plane. He is that close. He clears the tree line, his wings level, the Mustang climbing away, clawing for the safety of altitude. The gray in his vision recedes, and he dares to look back. He banks the Carolina Comet gently, his heart hammering against his ribs. Below him, the road is a charnel house. A thick column of black smoke billows into the sky, a funeral pyre visible for miles. Where a convoy had been moments before, there is now a continuous, 100-yard-long inferno. Burning hulks of metal are all that remain. He does a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 12. 12 trucks. A dozen vehicles, their cargo and their crews, utterly annihilated. Wiped from the face of the war in a single, 6-second pass. The key supply route is severed, choked with its own wreckage. The radio, which had been silent during his dive, crackles to life. It's not Evans's angry shout this time. It's the voice of another pilot from his flight, hushed, almost reverent. Jesus, Racer, did you see that? Another voice cuts in. Blue leader, this is Blue 4. The entire convoy is gone. It's just fire. Captain Evans's voice finally comes through, but the anger is gone, replaced by sheer, unadulterated shock. There is a long pause, the open carrier wave filled only with the hum of a Merlin engine. Then, a single, clipped transmission. "Blue flight, form on me. We're going home." Riley banks his P-51, the scent of victory and smoke still clinging to him, and turns his nose toward England. The silence of his comrades on the radio is more profound than any praise. The laughter was gone. In its place was a stunned, chilling awe. The flight back to RAF Leiston is conducted in near total silence. The routine radio chatter is absent, replaced by a tense, unspoken understanding that something fundamental has shifted. When blue flight appears over the airfield and breaks into the landing pattern, the ground crews look up, counting the planes. All four are there. But they know, from the grim set of the pilots' faces as they taxi toward their hard stands, that this was no routine mission. As Jack Riley kills the engine of the Carolina Comet, the sudden quiet is jarring. He sits for a long moment in the cockpit, the adrenaline slowly draining away, leaving him feeling hollowed out and strangely calm. The raid replays in his mind the dive, the noise, the fire, the gut-wrenching pull-out. He knows he will face a reckoning. He has directly disobeyed a command from his flight leader. In the unforgiving calculus of military discipline, that is a cardinal sin. He slides the canopy back and climbs out, his legs unsteady. Captain Evans is waiting for him on the tarmac, his helmet in his hand. The other two pilots of Blue Flight stand nearby, their expressions a mixture of awe and apprehension. Evans walks right up to him, his face a storm cloud. For a moment, Riley braces himself for a punch, for a torrent of fury. But Evans just stares at him, searching his face. "You are the luckiest, craziest son of a bitch I have ever met," Evans says, his voice low and hoarse. He doesn't shout. He doesn't threaten. He just shakes his head and walks away, heading for the debriefing hut. The unspoken message is clear: this is not over. This is going to the Major. The debriefing room is thick with tension. Major Croft sits behind a simple wooden table, his face impassive as Evans recounts the mission, his voice flat and professional. He details the flak, his damaged engine, his order to break off the attack. Then he comes to Riley's insubordination. "Lieutenant Riley broke formation and initiated a solo attack run against my direct order." The Major's gaze shifts to Riley, his eyes cold. "Lieutenant, is this accurate?" "Yes, sir," Riley replies, his own voice steady. He expects the book to be thrown at him. A court-martial is not out of the question. Grounded, at the very least. But then the intelligence officer speaks up. "Major, you need to see this." The lights dim, and the whir of a projector fills the room. On a small screen, the gun camera footage from the Carolina Comet flickers to life. The film is grainy, silent, and utterly damning for the enemy. The pilots watch, transfixed, as the camera's perspective tilts, the ground swelling to fill the screen. They see the frantic, futile defense from the German gunners. They witness the world-shaking vibration as the .50 calibers open up. And they see the result. The footage is a silent, black and white montage of pure destruction. The fuel tanker's spectacular explosion. The chain reaction of detonating ammunition. The systematic obliteration of the entire convoy, truck by truck. When the film ends with a violent lurch as Riley pulls up, the screen showing nothing but treetops and sky, the room is completely silent. The projector clicks off, and the lights come back on. The footage has changed everything. It isn't a story of one pilot's luck. It's evidence. It's proof. Major Croft stares at the blank screen for a long time. He then looks at the reconnaissance photos taken by another flight an hour later. They show nothing but a blackened, impassable scar on the landscape. A vital German supply line to the Aachen front, crippled in a matter of seconds. He finally turns his gaze back to Riley. The coldness is gone, replaced by a look of grudging, analytical respect. Your method, the Major says slowly, choosing his words with care, is unorthodox. It is extraordinarily dangerous. And it is undeniably effective. He leans forward. Tomorrow, you will walk me and the other flight leaders through the physics of this maneuver. Not as a reckless stunt, but as a tactical option. A tool. One to be used sparingly, and only by those with the skill to execute it. He pauses, letting the weight of his words settle. You disobeyed a direct order, Lieutenant. That will be dealt with. But you also saved the mission and achieved an objective far beyond our expectations. What was once mocked as the suicide dive is given a new, official name, the vertical pursuit attack. It becomes a textbook maneuver, studied and practiced by the 357th's best pilots. Jack Riley, the heretic, the lawn dart, becomes a reluctant teacher. He showed them all that sometimes the line between suicide and genius is measured in feet, fractions of a second, and the courage to defy not just the enemy, but the very limits of what is believed to be possible.